Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Best Laid Plans, and this episode was uneven. There were some things that I liked that we finally got some more kind of resolution and more forward momentum with the arcs of like Sonara and Cassius, but I felt that there was a lot of dead space in this episode. And that we were either retreading ground or just things that were happening that we'd either seen before or it was just almost like by rote kind of thing going on. So this episode starts off and actually starts off really kind of cool with the creepers, the Kree guards going at it, trying to get the humans and everything, but they do a pretty good plan to take them out. And I'm thinking, why don't you use their guns too? You know what I mean? They're energy-based weapons. They're a lot more powerful than the guns that you've got, but okay. So we're getting into the tactical situations of it, and Cassius is getting worried a little bit because his underling says that they've got firearms and everything, wondering how they've got weapons, and then says that he's going to show them that he is their god and show them punishment and all that kind of stuff. And as we're getting through this, Mac is getting worried that Flint could potentially be developing a bloodlust, which makes sense. And Yo-Yo, who's more than ready to be gung-ho about everything, doesn't care and actually wants him to use that stuff, and her plan is basically to go and assassinate Cassius, essentially going back to the past version of herself, which actually attempted to do that. So there's a nice parallel with that, but it's like, okay, so they pretty much just keep going back and forth throughout the episode as they start getting deeper into it, arguing about which way is kind of better. Now granted, I'm usually more tend to side with Mac because he doesn't outright say that we shouldn't do this, but there's usually better ways of going about it, whereas Yo-Yo just kind of wants to go and get things done. So with all of them in the lighthouse, it gets to the point where we see that a messenger was sent, and it's Tess, and she's alive, and she's come to get Flint and the rest of them and to stop this whole thing, otherwise he's going to like torch them, saying that Cassius had used like the blood of the Eternal to quench the fires of death, and the Eternals are an important part of the like cosmic hierarchy in the Marvel universe. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, but we don't get any more kind of information on that in this episode. It's just like, okay, they use Kree biology similar to Coulson to bring her back, and I actually really liked what they did with this. Now, I wish it was explored more because Tess does not look good. They did not do kind of what S.H.I.E.L.D. did to try and shield Coulson from the trauma of this. She remembers dying, it being painful, and not wanting to do that again. It's very similar to the kind of Jon Snow resurrection from Game of Thrones, in that she is changed and she does not look good. I mean, she's not decomposing or anything, but she's paler, her eyes are kind of darker, and she just wants to make sure that everything kind of smooths out in the end. As they're going through and saying that Cassius would incinerate them, Mac's like, wait a minute, how would he do that? Then they go through and we find out that they've got like these bombs throughout the whole place hooked up to the oxygen and pretty much torch all the levels. He's like, oh, okay, we kind of have to come up with a plan to do this. So at first you're thinking that they're going to go and give themselves to Cassius because they gathered all the humans. They wanted to fight. So it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. But if they attempt that kind of thing, they're just going to get blown up. So Mac and Yo-Yo say that they're going to try and give themselves up to him. Well, this proceeds to be a fake out where Tess goes. They're down. They've taken the research level and are threatening to destroy your experimentations with the Inhumans. And this, of course, angers Cassius and everything, and he then goes to confront them. I gotta really hand it to him. They really made a good villain in Cassius. I just wish he had been used better, or with a better kind of story, because the time traveling aspect really starts kind of messing with it. I just wish we didn't have to worry about the rest of those kind of things going into it. So, of course, he goes down, and is pretty much saying that, yeah, I'll just blow them all up, even though they're threatening the research and everything. And of course, Flint comes by, and Yo-Yo tries her tactic, but the Kree have stabs that create a kind of barrier, and Cassis is like, oh, this is the kind of deal that we already kind of hammered out before with the Inhumans and the human life. And it's like, that's interesting. Why don't you kind of go into that? And he recognizes Yo-Yo Rodriguez and everything. And I'm going, wow, okay, you're laying little tidbits and everything. Just do something with it. But of course, Cassis then sets off the bombs because he had showed his controls, which I gotta hand it to Max telling Yo-Yo, listen, wait for him to pull out to the controls so that we can get to it or whatnot. And that's a good strategy because otherwise, if you try and take out Cassis, you don't know if a trigger is tied to like his heartbeat or something. So, of course, she tried to do that, failed. He does his thing to initiate the bomb sequence, but the humans had taken them all and essentially cut them. They put it on a level and cut themselves off from Cassis so that way they couldn't do anything. And seeing his rage after Mac had like blown up the rest of the genetic materials and him and Flint and them got away was really very good. I'm like, oh, cool. All right. So that's kind of where that section ends. We get more of Cassis towards the end, but that leads to a kind of big reveal. So outside, we get not much going forward until we're just talking about trying to get the Zephyr out of there. And see people talking about what they've gone through. May figuring out that she'd been a mother to a kid and saying that she didn't really see like that. Of course, Daisy kind of going off, telling her what kind of mom she'd be. And like, you're doing the mom face. And going out and just that kind of stuff. And we get to Deke confronting Voss, and Voss saying that he killed his father because they had an argument on what to do. His father saying that they should help the people, that they'd have a plan or whatnot, and Voss wanting to kill them to stop the apocalypse. Essentially the same kind of Hitler scenario, but if you do that, it opens up consequences, because we then get a little bit more, not a little bit more information, but we get at least acknowledgement of how crazy the time paradox thing is, because Fitz and Simmons are going, what's going on here? This seems like this whole place is rewired. They find the gravitonium, which they had also previously found was giving gravity to the lighthouse, gives gravity to the Zephyr. And of course this leads Fitz to going, well, if that's here, we know about these upgrades and we have to go back in time and make these upgrades for these upgrades to exist. It's like, oh god. I like time traveling stories can be done right when you stick to certain basic principles. It's just with how this one's going, it's just, oh god, it can be a good way to have a story, but when it starts getting in the way of the story, and even the characters in the show are going, this is confusing as crap, that's kind of a problem. But Simmons is going, hey, if this is here, that means we go back and we do everything. Which, once I'm thinking about it, if Daisy goes back in her present condition, she has the inhibitor, and doesn't have the ability to use her quake powers anyway. Because it looks like for some reason it kind of lines up, I guess, from them coming back to it kind of being up to the apocalypse scenario. I don't know how. They could fix that going forward, but that's another kind of weird end to hop up on. So, of course, a gravity storm's coming in. They're trying to figure out what to do. Most of the elders are going to caves, and that's, of course, when Sonara comes in, which kind of confused me because I thought that they had abandoned the Zephyr because she dropped up in a ship. But that evidently must have been another ship that they'd taken him to, and then they took him to the Zephyr. That wasn't very clear, but of course, Sonara makes it onto the ship, and we get a cool fight scene where it's like, okay, Daisy fighting Sonara again. Alright. It was a good fight scene because they're in the middle of messing with everything, and they come up with the idea to, since the engines are screwed, to essentially ride the gravity storm outside. They will use the rest of the power for thrusters and then go back to the lighthouse. So while this is going on, Daisy's having her fight with Sonara, and granted, Daisy's pretty much getting her ass kicked towards the end, which is when Deke comes in and uses the claws to kind of like help her out and of course, he's not a trained warrior and is getting kind of like putzed around and kind of played with by Sonara. But Daisy, even without her powers, does land some good shots onto Sonara. But of course, since she doesn't have her powers fully, Sonara almost gets to an upper hand. But as they're able to get out of the gravity storm, that is when Daisy's able to kind of use a pipe and just kill Sonara. So it's like, alright, that was a pretty fitting end. They had a hard-fought battle, and it's like, alright, cool. I can feel that we're getting to the point where we're getting to the climax of at least this story arc. At least towards the end of the episode, it bumps it up, because in the beginning, it didn't feel like we were making much progress on the front until we got to Cassius being stymied by the humans, and the SHIELD team with his research and being cut off, and of course Sonara getting into her fight and essentially going against the orders of Cassius, saying that, yeah, he wants you alive, but screw that, I'm going to kill you anyway. So Daisy's like, yeah, screw that. And we did get, other than that, we did get some good lines from Enoch, just commenting on the situation. He's one of those great characters that I hope that they keep him around. It's the effect that it's another perspective, and it's an interesting perspective. He's an archaeologist, and he kind of plays a kind of C-3PO kind of role, going, this is not really a bad idea. This is a really bad idea. I really wouldn't do it. And then going like, oh, yeah, that works. Good deal. All right. So, of course, they then are making their way to the lighthouse. We still have some concerns about Deke, because we don't know if he's going to take out Daisy or not, because we've been led to believe with his talkings with Moss and his ideas of either killing him or not, in which he'd ultimately decided not to kill him, what he's going to do with Daisy, if he's going to hand her over to Cassius, or if he's going to kill her, or what's going to go on with that. So, that's another intriguing aspect that I hope can be brought to a good conclusion. So, we get to the end of the episode, and the creepers, the last of the Kree Guard, are asking Cassius what to do. He's going, Cassius, we got this. It's a SHIELD ship coming to the landing bay, right? Right, yeah. And he's like, yeah, well, they're not the only ones that have a seer. And that's a big kind of thing. I'm like, whoa. Is this a Kree seer? Is this another Inhuman? Is this a clone of Robin? If that's the case, why hasn't Cassius used this before? And we could see with his arrogance that he would think he thinks he is a smarter and a god to these humans, so he wouldn't think they'd be smart enough. Now that he knows that he is in a kind of precarious position, he's going to need all the help and information they can get. So I'm really hoping that they explore that further and give us some cooler answers to see how Cassius is going to try and combat the SHIELD team. Since, of course, we'd seen them messing around with the rock, Deke being a little bit afraid that they were trying to take the monolith rock in two. So, I don't know what they're going to be doing with that, other than trying to get Flint to get the rest of them. So, we're getting and marching towards our conclusion, at least for this part, before we get home and kind of see where the rest of the season is going to take us. So, the main good parts in this episode were kind of getting Cassius move forward, revealing his seer, getting Sonara to fight Daisy and finally meet her end, and also move it to the SHIELD team almost being reunited and trying to figure out how to take out Cassius and get home. So, those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.